Welcome to the Dose of Good podcast, where we celebrate good people and organizations working to make the world a better place. It can be easy to get caught up in the bad things going on in the world and forget about the good happening all around us each and every day. I'm your host, Erin, and I want to share these stories with you and give them the attention they deserve. I hope this podcast educates and inspires you and maybe even motivates you to share a dose of good in your community. Now let's get into today's episode. For today's episode, I speak to Rachel Yakey, who is the program director for End 68 Hours of Hunger in Londonderry. End 68 Hours of Hunger is a program that was started here in New Hampshire, but has since branched out to other states, and it's to address the needs of children who may not otherwise get food over the weekend or enough food, so they might be on the lunch program at school or the lunch and breakfast program and may need that additional support to get their meals over the weekend. And I really enjoyed talking to Rachel, and I hope that you will enjoy learning more about this wonderful organization. Today I'm here with Rachel Yakey, Program Coordinator for End 68 Hours of Hunger in Londonderry. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So could you start by telling us what End 68 Hours of Hunger is and what their mission is?
Yeah, so End 68 Hours of Hunger is a program designed to help students in food insecure families bridge that gap from having free and lower cost meals accessibility at school to home. So roughly calculated, it's about 68 hours from the last meal that they have Friday at school till the first meal that is available to them Monday at school. So we try to fill that gap.
That's great. And because I think that's something a lot of people don't necessarily think about, the fact that over the weekend there are kids that might not have anything to eat. So how did you get involved with the organization?
So we're part of Rockingham Christian Church in Salem, New Hampshire, and they were helping the Salem program one time. And I just started teaching here in Londonderry, and we happened to do like a summer book study. So I chose to read a book about a young man who suddenly found himself homeless. And so he had everything going for him, and then everything was taken away. So it was about that time, I think, also in America, where people were living in tents, the housing market had dropped out, things like that. And so through reading that book and a discussion, I brought up that we have programs like this and people that need help like this in our area. Mm-hmm. And one thing led to another, and I answered an email that said I could look into that, and then here we are.
How do you think hunger affects children?
Well, there's lots of studies out there that show that hunger affects in multiple ways, like being unable to concentrate, right? Just even kind of internally knowing a little bit like you're less than, especially even in middle school, because I teach there and that's the environment I'm in a lot. You have students wearing $100 hoodies, to school and all that stuff. And then you have students that are faking it to make it, if you will. They're just trying to fit in, and they don't want to voice that they have these areas of concern.
Sure.
So I think it affects, just psychologically in multiple ways beyond just physically. I'm also a coach, and we have students that, because I coach track, wintertime, we're all like that, right? Sitting around loafing. And then now suddenly we're active. I'm like, you have to eat more.
Right.
And then you think about some students that just don't have that opportunity. Mm-hmm. I know from working in this program, especially at the elementary schools, if you can imagine a child being excited because they got their favorite granola bar. Like, that's kind of the world that they're living in.
Yeah. Just kind of touching on something where you mentioned about like the kids who have the expensive hoodies. Do you think kids, all age or maybe middle school, whatever you think is a good guide, but do you think kids should be educated about hunger? And if so, what is a good way to do that?
I think they should. Again, just working in schools, children are very empathetic. They have all the things that we know growing up, but when it comes down to it, they're very kind to one another. I know just from being an English and reading teacher, I think reading books about it, there's lots of ones, various ages. For elementary school, there's one called Maddie's Fridge, where a young girl meets a new friend and doesn't realize that her fridge is empty, right? So she's kind of learning how to help, and that's even just for kindergarten and up. I mentioned that book, that was middle school level, but even through like educational magazines that I have, they have several articles that just talk about homelessness and food insecurity and what that looks like across the country. So there's lots of things out there that can, I guess, softly educate children about what it is, but they're very, like I said, empathetic, but also they notice, like they care when someone looks like they don't have what they need.
Sure.
And they help each other. So even just taking what's natural to them and then providing them with facts and like a human face to it, like I think that's a very soft way to educate kids without making them feel guilty or bad for the things that they have.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear that they do have that empathy and, can kind of sense maybe when someone's in need, that kind of thing. So now going back to End 68 Hours of Hunger, what is the process like for people to sign up for it? Is it available to anyone? How does that work?
So in terms of the children that we service and help,
Yes.
So what we do in the fall is I work with the food service managers, and everything is kept confidential, but they tell me how many envelopes to stuff, and we send invitations to students in the free and reduced lunch.
Okay.
So they get a direct invitation that tells them what the program is, it tells them who their contact person is at the school, and asks if they would like to sign up or who to contact if they want more information.
Okay.
Then the rest is just kind of word of mouth. I have teachers or principals that come, counselors that say, I'm not sure so-and-so's getting enough food. And I'll say, okay, here's your contact person. And that person, like at my school, it's the nurse. At the other elementary schools, it's other teachers. And they just help get in contact with the families. And then they tell me how many bags to pack. They pick them up and then they distribute them.
Okay, so can you tell us a little more? I know I saw on the website that you stuff backpacks, is that correct? And what does that process look like, I guess?
Yeah, it used to be backpacks. Now we just do like black bags that are hard to see through, so kids don't know that there's food in there.
Yeah.
And a lot of principals just open the kids' book bag, stick the bag in, zip it back up, and then they're on the bus. But what that looks like in terms of my program is the first Saturday of every month, I have a team of volunteers that come, and depending on the weekly need, we pack for the entire month. Like this Saturday, we're packing for the end of the school year, so we'll pack 6 weeks.
Okay.
And we have 3 dinners, 2 lunches, 3 breakfasts, snacks, and we try to do things that kids would like, cereal, oatmeal. Hopefully they eat it.
Yeah.
We do Pop-Tarts once a month, because what kid doesn't love Pop-Tarts?
Sure.
And so it's just an assembly line. They lay out the bags, they go through with the items, then we close them up, we divvy them up by school, and then I deliver some, and I have some school representatives that come pick it up direct.
Okay.
And then every Friday, some schools I think do Wednesday, but once a week the kids get the bags, and then we just keep on going through the whole school year.
Okay. Yeah, that brought up a point that I didn't think about, but because we are coming up on the end of the school year, which is hard to believe. So is there any sort of continuation throughout summer?
We tried in the past, especially during lockdown and COVID. We had a team of volunteers who for hours were dropping off bags, and it was very taxing on my volunteers.
Yeah.
So then the next year, the middle school was gracious enough to let me kind of set up, but parents didn't pick up.
Okay.
So we kind of decided to take a break during the summer. There's lots of different programs in town that I know of or partner with that our food banks that can help families as well. Like we have one that we're just partnering with, and forgive me, I forget the name, but I think it's through a local church who gave me flyers, and we're starting one school at a time. And this would provide even more meals for families, and have more like direct, not so much like the snacks and things that we
Sure.
do that are individual for the kid, but more family based.
Okay, well, that's good to know that there's other resources out there for them and everything.
Yeah, and with the dairy program, we kind of go back and forth a little bit. So, and I also help out the Litchfield program right now, and they're trying to get one off the ground.
Okay.
So I provide for about 24 kids in Litchfield right now as well. So within the communities, there's lots of food banks through churches and things like that, because Londonderry again is very generous. When I first started this program, not many people knew about it, and I'm not sure people knew how deep the need was. But once we started doing things, other people also picked it up. So we've been able to kind of back off and just stick to doing the bags, because other people have started providing like toothbrushes, toothpaste,
Oh, okay.
coats,
Yeah.
Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner, things like that.
That's one of the other things I was going to ask is if someone doesn't have this program in their community, they can start their own chapter in their community, right? So if someone's thinking about doing that or wants to kind of know the process, how do they get started with that?
Yep, so if they go to in68hours.org, then they can kind of look at what the qualifications are, like the requirements. There's a list of things that need to be met before you can start your program, and then they can get in contact with the program head, and then she'll work with you to get all of that established. It's fairly easy once you get things put into place. But yeah, so if anyone's really interested, that's probably the best way to go about it.
Okay. And then based on just what I was seeing, am I correct that this started in New Hampshire, but it's kind of branching out to some other states as well?
Yes, so it started in Dover, New Hampshire, by
Okay.
a woman named Claire Bloom. And so she saw a need. I think when I first met her, she talked about how they were in what would you call, like a storage facility.
Okay.
So then they just pack, and it started small, but now it's across the country.
Yeah.
There's some in Florida, there's some in Illinois, well, I think even Ohio, maybe California.
Yeah,
So,
I know I saw Florida and Ohio on there, so that's great that it's kind of branching out to other areas and everything. So, as far as need, have you noticed there being an increase in need, or has it kind of stayed level as far as like how many kids you serve kind of thing?
Yeah, so definitely when COVID hit, it spiked a bit. And I anticipate with these next round of invitations in the fall that the numbers will go up. When I first started, we did about 10 or 12 bags to one school. And that was just, gosh, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Now
Okay.
we're up to 85 bags a week on average.
Yeah.
And we service all the elementary schools, the middle school. Moose Hill will contact us when they see a
Okay.
child in need. So some years we have 0 kids there, some years we have 1, some we have 3. The high school has its own setup to help kids as they transition there, just
Okay.
to be more age appropriate.
Sure.
Because even at middle school, by the time they get to 8th grade, they don't really want to pick up the bags anymore. Kids ask questions.
Okay,
They
yeah.
kind of feel singled out.
Yeah.
So I believe the high school has like a pantry where kids can kind of shop for themselves. So
Oh,
it doesn't
okay.
feel so like, oh, I gotta pick up my food bag.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
That makes sense.
But also just with our needs going up, the resources in the community, I think, have gotten bigger. And so while my numbers might not be going up, I feel like the town itself has recognized that there are a lot of food insecurity homes
Okay.
and are rising to the need.
Oh, that's good to hear. So you mentioned your volunteers. What sort of volunteer opportunities are available, and how can people go about getting involved or becoming a volunteer?
Yep, so they can contact me directly through the website. My phone number is listed, and that's better for me. I have so many emails to check. That
Sure,
I get kinda
especially
lost
being a
in the
teacher, I know they
yes.
get a lot of emails.
Yes,
So.
so sometimes I forget. But right now, a lot of Londonderry churches help me out. I have 2 main churches that come down, and there's a person kind of that's my liaison in each church. So through them, they post when the days are. But really, we pack every first Saturday of every month without fail, September through May at Rockingham Christian Church at about 9 o'clock. And then we have a big food drive coming up June 14th at the local Market Basket. So even if you can't come pack bags or help deliver them, you can shop, right? You can just go and grab a jelly and drop it off, and then you provide a jelly for a child. The bags are about $12 to $15 to do weekly per child. So you can even just go onto the website and you can directly donate $15, and then you fed a kid for a week.
Oh, wow, that's great to know. So with the food drive, it's at Market Basket and there's going to be like a bin or something that people can just leave food
Oh yeah,
or okay.
it's you'll notice us. Yes,
Okay.
so it's through an organization that helps nonprofits, and they kind of set up so we'll be at both doors. You'll get a little shopping list that tells you the items that we need, and then when you after you purchase it, a lot of times the cashiers and stuff know because we do it yearly, and so you can even say, can you put that in a separate bag, and then when you come out there's people there to collect it. You just hand it to us, we say thank you, and it's really no time or inconvenience on your part whatsoever.
If people because you're having this event in June, but let's say someone wants to donate in September, can they just donate food anytime or?
Yes, so we have a food donation site at the police station, so they can just go in and drop it into the lobby there.
Okay.
Or, like I said, they can do some of the area churches already have it set up where they have like bags for us that you could drop off.
So it sounds like there's a number of options of where they could donate. Do you have a list on your website of what sorts of things you're looking for?
Yes, and then I believe the website organization has kind of the same typical food. There are some, I guess you would say, towns that programs that are very specific for their town, but I tend to just follow like a very
The
set
general,
thing. Yeah, because I mean, growing up, my mom worked odd hours, and I was the oldest of five, so I was kind of in charge of cooking. So some programs do like more elaborate meals, and I'm more on the cautious side of, well, what if these kids are home by themselves and they have to cook? Like, I don't want to
keep it more simple.
right? And cooking mac and cheese on the stove is a lot easier than some of the things
having to prepare a chicken or something like that. Yeah.
I just know I'm not a good cook, able to do that at like 12.
Yeah.
So I try and keep things pretty simple and kid friendly, even though sometimes people are like, why are you giving them that? I'm like, well, because kids like mac and cheese.
Yes, true. And they'll eat it.
And they'll eat it, and we need kids to eat things.
Yes.
So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question.
You did. You did, yes. So you talked about the food drive. Do you have any other events or fundraisers throughout the year that you want to share, or?
I mean, that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Like, we have a lot of people that just kind of step up and help us out. Like the Rotary in town just donated money to us. I go periodically, maybe once every couple of years, and give them an update, just let them know. But they're very involved in our program. Like I said, the area churches are always very helpful. So, I mean, to be honest, I kind of, when I first started this program, I was like, I can't do this by myself. So I was like, God, you gotta kind of take care of it, because I work full time. Not a lot of program coordinators do. Plus, I coach. I was also getting my CAGs at the time, and then I have 2 children.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Volunteer on my own.
Yeah.
So I'm like, God, if you want this program to be successful, like, you've got to do it, and He just does.
Yeah.
So we luckily don't have to do a lot of fundraising through the generosity of so many people in town. So between just regular donations, the volunteers coming and helping, and the food drive, we're pretty much set for the year.
Oh, good.
So having people donate $25 here or there really helps us out the most.
Well, that's good to know, and hopefully people will go to your site and check that out, or go the day of the food drive, or just donate food. That would be great. Is there anything else you'd like people to know about End 68 Hours of Hunger that maybe we haven't talked about?
I think the biggest thing that I want people to know is that even in Londonderry, where you see a plethora of very expensive cars and it wants to have this image of being a very affluent community, with the way things are, people are struggling. And when you hear the commercials for feedingamerica.org, where people have to make that decision between fixing their car or getting food, like these are real people. A lot of the people that we help make too much money to actually get qualified government help. And it's not something to be ashamed of, and it's not something to look down on people for. People just need help, and we're a community, and we're a loving community, and it should be very easy just to reach out and say, oh, hey, you need help, let me provide it, I have a little extra. Lots of people are moving in with each other to save costs on housing and things like that. So when you're driving around Londonderry and you see all the BMWs, don't be convinced that that means everybody's okay all the time.
Right. Because, like anywhere, that's a percentage of the people, but it's not everybody's situation. So,
Yeah. And about 43% of people that need help don't qualify for government assistance. And when you think about what that would mean in terms of children.
yeah, definitely. Well, it's great that this program exists to help those people out. So, and then I just have two last questions that I like to ask everybody that comes on the show. So the first is, which nonprofit you think we should feature next?
I don't even know if I know enough about the area and nonprofits to give an answer to that. Yeah, I really.
That's okay.
Sorry, I didn't grow up here. I moved
Okay.
up here from North Carolina, and I'm a
Oh,
Midwest
yeah.
girl, so
Oh,
we've only
wow.
been
You've
here
been
for
all
maybe
over.
7 or 8 years. So I don't know that much. I know Lazarus House is a
Okay.
wonderful organization. I think it's out of Massachusetts.
Okay.
But they do a lot of really great work, kind of taking what we do to the next level and help people find homes and deal with homelessness in the area. So they're
Oh,
a great
nice.
nonprofit.
Yeah, I haven't heard of them, so I'll definitely add them to the list. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. And then the last question is a difficult one, but I think it kind of speaks to the heart of what this podcast is about, and that is, what is the kindest thing you've witnessed or been a part of?
Oh boy, kindest.
Or it's sometimes it's hard to think of like one specific, but maybe what comes to mind, like a story or something you experienced or observed.
Yeah, that's so hard. And not because I don't see it a lot, it's because I see it too often. You know what I mean? You might even make me cry a little. Let's see. I think I just see it like a lot at school, to be honest. Even like I just did the DC trip with the eighth graders
Oh,
last
okay.
week, and we were doing bus karaoke, and a young man came up, and first of all, you have to be very brave
Oh,
to do
yeah.
karaoke in front of your peers
Yeah.
on a bus. And he has kind of a speech impediment a bit, so sometimes
Okay.
it's really hard to understand him, and the music wasn't there. It was just kind of him mumbling into the
Okay,
microphone.
yeah.
And it was a very long song.
Oh, gosh.
But the students were so kind. Like, it got to, they were cheering him on, like chanting his name, and they weren't doing it in a way that you're like, oh, they're,
Like,
kind of fed up or whatever.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
but they're just kind. Like, I see them pick things up for each other. I see them, sit with someone who doesn't have any friends at lunch. I hear a lot of sincerity when they ask if everything's okay. So as much as they're teenagers or preteens and they poke each other, all the things that we know like kids do, they're open to being better people, which I think is amazing.
That is amazing, and thank you for sharing that, because I think, especially when it comes to middle school age, I think sometimes there's a conception or belief that they aren't very kind or, thoughtful in that way. So it's nice to hear that they are kind to each other and do those things for each other. So I'm glad that you shared that. And thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate your time, and hopefully people will check out End 68 Hours of Hunger and donate or get involved. So
Thank you so much for having me.
you're welcome. Thank you for watching and listening to today's episode about End 68 Hours of Hunger. It's a very important organization who is doing great work in the community, and I hope that you will check them out to either donate food if you're local, donate monetary funds if you're able to, or maybe you'd even like to look into starting one in your area if there isn't one already. Again, thank you to Rachel for being on the show today. I really appreciate her time and sharing this information with us. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and leave a rating and review. Subscribe on YouTube, and also be sure to follow Dose of Good Podcast on Instagram and Facebook for all the latest information on the podcast. I hope that you've been enjoying the podcast and learning about these wonderful nonprofits or individuals who are doing amazing things in their community. And we have a lot of exciting episodes coming up for you throughout the summer with even more great organizations. And we love your feedback, so please let us know what you think of the podcast. Let us know who you might like to see on the podcast, and we will do our best to make that happen for you. Thank you so much, and have a great day.